When we were young, I did everything I could to turn Howard gay. Later, he hated me for leading him down that path and took his revenge by locking me away. I was his secret lover for 5 years. I watched him go through one partner after another until he finally shed the gay label and decided to get married. He told me, "You are the only stain on my life." As if his wish were granted, I was diagnosed with a terminal illness. His only stain could finally be erased. But Howard lost his mind, searching for experts all over the world to keep me alive. But I had long since given up on living. Howard's new boyfriend looked a bit like me. He was a student at a top university in Chicago, from a wealthy family, with a bright and charming personality. For him, Howard changed his orientation. Compared to the girlfriends he used to cycle through, this boy stayed by Howard's side for over 6 months. One evening, I called Howard to ask if he was coming home for dinner. When he picked up, I could faintly hear someone on the other end ask, "Who is it?" Howard replied coolly, "The help." He said he wasn't coming back and hung up. Listening to the dial tone, I felt a dull ache in my chest. My doctor said my condition was getting worse, and I might not make it through the year. I'd already had 1 heart transplant when I was 19. I survived years of complications and rejection responses. But it all led to this. Now, I was just staying alive on expensive experimental drugs, and I had no idea how much time I had left. The day Alexander showed up at the house, I was in the garden with a watering can. They called it a garden, but only a small patch was for roses. I had turned the rest into a vegetable patch. The roses were for Howard. The vegetables were for cooking Howard's meals. Alexander stood a short distance away, studying me for a long time before letting out a laugh. I'd heard Howard kept a pretty little canary at home, but I see today it's just a common sparrow. I felt a little awkward and looked down, brushing the dirt off my apron. Compared to the person in front of me, I was a bit rough around the edges, and certainly not as young or vibrant. Alexander smiled and said, "I don't care how long you've been with Howard, but I want you to leave on your own, because you can't possibly compete with me." The butler, who had shown him in, reminded him, "Mr. Alexander, please watch your tone." Alexander paused. Only then did he notice the ring on my finger, which matched the one Howard wore. Alexander's expression didn't change. "Just kidding," he said, "while I'm waiting for Howard to get back. Can this guy show me around?" The butler nodded. "As you wish." I had no intention of giving him a tour. I put my tools away and started to leave. But Alexander followed slowly behind me, his voice dripping with scorn. "It's just a stupid ring. You think him wearing it means he loves you? How naive. That time you called to ask if he was coming home for dinner, he said no. He was with me. This antique pendant around my neck? He spent $3 million on it at auction for me. Has he ever given you a gift that expensive?" I walked on, answering casually, "No." "What about a house? A car? Don't tell me you haven't gotten any of those either?" "No, he's never given me much of anything." Alexander's tone grew even more cheerful. "Have you ever heard the saying? A man's love is where his money is." "Well, congratulations." My indifferent attitude seemed to infuriate Alexander. His voice rose. "You get no love and no money. You're not even a real lover. You're just a clown. You don't believe me? Fine. Let's see who Howard really cares about more." I stopped walking. Alexander had a malicious smile on his face. He looked at me, then started backing up step by step, and let himself fall backward into the outdoor pool. When Howard got back, Alexander was still lying by the edge of the pool, coughing up water, his face pale. Howard scooped him into his arms, patting his back, and looked up at me, demanding what happened. Alexander pointed a trembling finger at me. He pushed me. "He's lying," I said calmly. "You can't swim. I'm the one who saved you." Alexander broke into another fit of heart-wrenching coughs. He cried out, "You pushed me in. Then you got scared I'd actually drown, so you pulled me out. So what if I was jealous? You get to show off your ring, so why can't I show off the necklace Howard bought me? You were the one who started mocking me, and then you got mad yourself, complaining that Howard never gave you anything and that he doesn't spend enough on you. Well, if you feel that way, then give him to me. It's not like I'm with him for the money anyway. Hearing this, Howard's gaze drifted over to me. Oh, so I've been mistreating you? I had nothing to say. Every month, I asked Howard for a fixed sum of $25,000. He never asked what I spent it on, and he didn't know I was taking experimental medication. I went to the hospital once a month, which he assumed was for routine checkups. He never showed any concern. Even if he never gave me gifts, he certainly hadn't mistreated me. You're 26, picking fights with a kid who just started college. Howard couldn't be bothered to look at me any longer, turning his attention back to Alexander. And you, he said, why do you even bother him? He sounded like he was scolding him, but his tone was full of affection. Alexander whined, I was just jealous he gets to wear the same ring as you. You've never given me a ring. At that, Howard casually pulled his ring off and tossed it into the water. Feel better now? Alexander's eyes flashed with triumph, and he was about to speak. But in the next second, I dove into the pool, desperately searching for that ring. I held my breath, searching the water, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Everyone stood around the pool watching my meltdown. I refused to give up, obsessed with finding that ring, until the dull ache in my heart returned and the oxygen ran out. My vision started to go black, and the past flashed before my eyes. One Valentine's Day after a movie, Howard and I watched a public proposal. A guy gave a girl 999 roses. When they hugged, everyone around them cheered and congratulated them. Howard and I stood on the edge of the crowd. We were a couple, but we didn't even dare to hold hands. Later, I bought a pair of rings from a street stall and gave one to him excitedly. These are so plain, no one will ever know they're a matching set. I can't remember the look on Howard's face back then. I only remember he was very quiet, without a single smile. On my birthday, Howard suddenly called and told me to go outside and look at the sky. Sparks bloomed over the city, and with a boom, a giant bird appeared. I whispered the letters I saw, Evie loves LQ. On the phone, Howard said, Happy birthday, Leo. I envied the love others could show off in the open. So Howard used fireworks to tell the whole city that he loved me. The display lasted for a long, long time. So long that my face was streaked with tears as I ran to him, sobbing. Howard, it doesn't have to be out in the open. I don't need roses and I don't need blessings. I just want to run away with you to the ends of the earth, where we can hide, where no one can find us. I want to marry you in Iceland, a country of ice and fire, shrouded in cold, yet a place that could embrace a love the world didn't understand. There, no one would judge us, and no one would say that two men being together was disgusting. The pain in my heart was getting worse. I woke up on the bed. When I opened my eyes, it was as if the teenage Howard was sitting right in front of me. I stared at him, smiling, but my nose began to sting. Howard, Iceland is too far. I can't make it. Howard, I want to see the fireworks one more time. The bedside lamp clicked on. Howard, dressed in a black shirt, stared at me, his features devastatingly handsome. There was always a shadow of gloom under his eyes that never quite disappeared. When he wasn't smiling, he looked at you like a venomous snake in the dark, warning you to stay away. That jealous, are we? Howard smiled. He raised a hand to caress my face. A beat too late, I realized that Howard was wearing the ring again. I threw my arms around him, murmuring, Thank God, you didn't lose it. That night, for the first time in a long while, Howard touched me. His hand ran along my spine, and he frowned. You're all bone. Haven't you been eating properly? I told him I hadn't had much of an appetite lately. Howard just chuckled softly before pressing down on me. In the middle of it, I wrapped my arms around his neck, my body trembling. Howard, I said, can you give me $50,000 this month? There was a new drug developed in the US that was said to be very effective at controlling heart disease. The downside was its price, $14,000 a dose. The moment I said it, Howard's body went still. The temperature in the room dropped. After a long pause, Howard finally said, No wonder you were so eager tonight. Then again, you only got close to me in school for the money. Howard sat up, his emotionless gaze falling on me. Sometimes I wish you were more like Alexander. At least his love is pure. But you've always been faking it. Howard pulled away. In a panic, I grabbed his arm. That's not true. Howard shook me off and turned his back to me, checking his phone. A voice message from Alexander played. Howard, I followed a tutorial and tried to knit you a sweater. It's my first time, so you can't say you don't like it. Okay? Howard's expression softened as he started to get dressed. He tossed a credit card on the floor, and without another glance at me, he opened the door and left. After Howard left that time, he disappeared for over 2 weeks. One night, I was woken by a sharp pain, my face wet with involuntary tears. Suddenly, a firework shot up outside my window. A series of colorful explosions lit up my eyes. My heart leaped with anticipation, and I ran downstairs. Howard. I only got his name out before I froze. Alexander, dressed to the nines and surrounded by a crowd, looked at me with amusement. Oh, you're here to celebrate my birthday too? I glanced at Howard standing next to Alexander and fell silent. Howard didn't even look at me. He handed Alexander a box and said, "The gift you wanted." Alexander gasped in delight. "You actually had a custom ring made for me." He threw his arms around Howard and kissed him on the cheek. "Darling, put it on for me." Amid the cheers of the crowd, Howard took Alexander's hand and slipped the ring onto his finger. The sight stabbed at me, and I turned away, unable to watch. The whole night, Alexander and Howard were all over each other, while I was completely ignored in a corner. A few people came over with drinks to talk to me. "I heard you're Howard's first love?" First love? More like a skeleton in his closet. I heard he scammed Howard out of some money, dumped him, and then came crawling back for a handout. Ha, I was expecting some kind of seducer, but he just looks like this. Being gay is already a niche thing, but to be with someone like this. How embarrassing. I bet Howard just keeps him around to humiliate him. I mean, if you're going to be with a guy, he should at least be as presentable as Alexander. I stood up to leave, but a hand pushed me back down. "Where are you going?" "They're just joking." The guy in front of me was decked out in designer clothes, one of Alexander's friends, I thought. He shoved a glass into my hand with a malicious grin. "It's Alexander's birthday tonight. Have a drink to liven things up." Huh? I refused. "I don't drink." "What, a grown man can't handle a drink?" "That's not it," I said. "I have a heart condition. I can't drink." At that, the people around us burst into laughter. "If you don't want to drink, just say so. No need to fake an illness." "Oh, I'm so fragile, so pitiful." "There. Feel better?" Alexander's friend turned and shouted across the room. "Hey, Alexander. This guy says he has a heart condition just to get out of drinking. Is that for real?" Alexander snorted, his face immediately clouding over. Howard looked over, rubbing his temples in annoyance. "If you're not going to drink, then get out. Stop ruining the mood." I froze for a second, then picked up the glass again and downed it in one gulp. "Happy birthday," I said to Alexander. But Alexander just gave me a long, meaningful smile. I didn't understand what his smile meant until about 10 minutes later, when my head started to spin. I fought through the discomfort, staggered back to my room, and collapsed onto the bed. When I opened my eyes again, the lights were blazing, and there was a half-naked man lying next to me. The bedroom door was thrown open. Alexander stood there with a group of people, shouting in mock surprise, "Chris, what are you doing here?" "He's the one who brought me up here, of course." The man slowly lit a cigarette, a smirk on his face. This little slut saw I had money and tried to seduce me. I wasn't going to bother, but then he drugged my drink. By the door, Howard's face was a blank mask. I was terrified out of my mind, scrambling and tumbling off the bed. Then I suddenly noticed a Rolex watch on my wrist. The man was still smiling. "He'll do anything for a watch worth a couple $100,000. Mr. Vance, this guy," he didn't finish. Howard grabbed him by the hair, dragged him off the bed, and slammed his head against the wall with a thud. The man looked at him in disbelief. "He's the one who seduced me." "Oh, is that right?" Howard kicked him so hard he spat up blood. He took off his suit jacket and dragged the man downstairs. A series of horrifying screams followed. Mixed with the sickening thud of flesh being beaten, the sounds grew fainter, as if the man was about to draw his last breath. I heard Alexander crying out, "Howard, he's my friend. Please stop, okay?" Howard's reply was flat, without a trace of emotion. "Oh, I forgot. You're the one who brought him here." Water splashed everywhere in the outdoor pool. Alexander had been thrown in. In the end, Alexander's friends pulled him, sobbing, from the water. The farce was over. Everyone had left. No one dared to help the other man. So he was still lying in the yard, his breathing faint. But Howard seemed to be in a good mood. He started playing the piano in the dead of night. His hands were stained with someone else's blood. Soon, the piano keys were smeared red. He played faster and faster, until it was less playing and more smashing. The terrifying chords filled the house, a chaotic and frenzied echo of the countless old scars on his wrists. "I'm sorry," I said, wrapping my arms around his waist from behind. "Howard, I didn't do anything like that. Nothing happened with him. Please don't be angry, okay? Please stop." But Howard suddenly grabbed my throat, his eyes bloodshot. "You bastard. Wasn't I enough for you? You had to go after someone else? Is that how much you love money? Why are you so cheap? If it weren't for you, I'd be married with kids by now. Not some freak who likes men. I tried countless women. And in the end, the only guy I could even stand to look at was Alexander. And that's only because he has the same damn mole under his eye as you." His grip tightened. I could barely breathe. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, Howard shoved me away. "Sometimes I think I'm pretty cheap myself," he murmured. "Leo, let's just stay broken together. You dragged me down this road, so neither of us gets to let go." The next day, the butler got a call late at night saying Howard was drunk and that I needed to go pick him up. When I pushed open the door to the private room, the party was still in full swing. Howard was lying alone on a sofa, one arm dangling limply toward the carpet, a cigarette between his fingers. "You're here." He slowly sat up through the haze of smoke, squinting at me. "Tonight, we have some new money titans of industry, some rich kids from New York's elite, directors, entrepreneurs. What they all have in common is that they're very, very rich. Leo, I'll make the introductions. Pick one, how about it?" The moment he finished, every eye in the room turned to me. In that instant, I felt like I'd been plunged into ice. The smile in Howard's eyes was hazy. I looked at him and felt an infinite sadness welling up inside me. "I'm not picking anyone. I only love you," I said. "Liar." Howard was still smiling. "I know you better than anyone. You don't love anyone but money and status, right? Don't hesitate. Pick one. I'll let you go." I stepped forward and hugged him. "That's not true. I love you." Howard pushed me away. I moved closer again, hugging him over and over, repeating, "I love you, I love you, I love you," even though Howard pushed me away every single time. The last time, he exploded in anger, smashing a wine glass. "I told you to fucking pick one." I forced back the sting in my eyes and looked at him. "Howard, is it true that no matter what I say or do, you'll never believe me again?" Howard raised an eyebrow, a look of indifference on his face. I nodded. "Fine." I looked around the room. I picked someone at random and kissed them on the cheek. The room fell silent. Howard just stood there, frozen. After a long moment, he burst out laughing, frantically smashing everything around him. "Good. That's just great. Ha ha ha." He was laughing through tears. "Leo, I'm done playing games with you." The boomerang from 10 years ago. It had finally come back and hit me. "Howard, I'm done playing games with you," I said to the boy in front of me. "I only got close to you in the first place because your family is powerful. Turning you gay gave me a sense of accomplishment. But your mom offered me a lot of money yesterday to leave you, so I don't want to do this anymore. Howard, you know my family is poor. I can't refuse." Despair filled Howard's eyes. He shook his head, saying, "I don't believe you." He grabbed my hand, trembling, like he was clutching a lifeline. "Did I do something wrong, Leo? I know sometimes my temper is bad. This is my first time liking a guy. I don't have any experience. If there's something you don't like, just tell me, and I'll change. Okay? Or did my family threaten you? Is that it? What did she say to you? Don't be scared. Okay? We can face this together. Seeing my continued silence, Howard's eyes welled up. He choked out a plea. I'm begging you. Don't tell me you were just lying to me. I don't understand. Besides my parents threatening you, I can't think of any reason why you'd want to break up. My face was blank as I pried his fingers off one by one. I'm truly sorry. I'm sorry I got close to you for the money. I turned and walked away. Howard completely broke down, screaming and trying to run after me, but two orderlies grabbed him. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Leo, I like you. Leo, I love you. I couldn't help but look back. I saw Howard get zapped with a stun baton. He convulsed and fell. His bloodshot eyes were wide open as he tried to crawl in my direction. The last time we saw each other was in the school hallway. The golden boy had fallen from grace, drowned in a storm of rumors. Haha, your idol is gay. That's kind of disgusting. He actually likes guys. How weird. Howard walked alone through the whispers. His eyes were dead. They only lit up for a moment when he saw me. I heard he was electroshocked at a conversion center for 2 months. I don't know if they managed to correct his orientation. I had no way of knowing, because I transferred schools the very next day. When we met again, it was many years later. After that night, Howard disappeared for 2 days. The next news I heard was that he was engaged to the daughter of a famous corporate family in Chicago. The wedding was at the end of the month. When I heard the news, I coughed up a mouthful of thick blood. I called him. The call wouldn't go through. I sent him messages. He didn't reply. I wanted to go find him, but I couldn't take a single step out of the mansion. My angina flared up, and I spilled a handful of pills with trembling hands. But nothing could get rid of the pain that went bone deep. Howard, from the moment I confessed to you when we were young, to when I cruelly left you, I was starting to regret it. I regretted not holding on a little longer, not being brave enough to face it all with you. Day and night, I was racked with guilt over the tears you shed that day, and the shell of a person you were when we met again. I wanted a fresh start with you, but you still chose to get married. Howard, did the electroshock therapy hurt a lot? Howard, are you that disappointed in me? The night before Howard's wedding, I called him countless times, starting in the morning. He still didn't pick up. After I coughed up blood that time, my condition began to deteriorate rapidly. I swallowed the pain and begged the butler to pass on a message for me. Tell Howard to come back. I have something to say to him. Then I clutched my chest and went back to my room, shivering. I told myself just one last time. I'll try one last time. Howard, if you just come, I'm willing to explain everything. Breaking up with you wasn't what I wanted. I've loved you all these years. If you just come, I'm willing to spend the rest of my life loving you. Howard, just come. Please just come. Howard didn't come. June 2nd, a torrential downpour. In the early hours of his wedding night, Howard appeared before me. He was still in his tuxedo, a smile on his face, looking a little drunk. Now I'm finally a normal person. A flash of lightning outside the window illuminated his face for a second. Congratulations to me. In the 20-something years of my life, you were the only stain I couldn't wipe away. Howard pressed his nose against mine and whispered, if you had just been a little more obedient, I would have given you anything, but now none of it is yours. How does it feel? Do you regret it? I don't want anything. My voice was hoarse. Give me back the ring. Howard looked confused. A tear slid from the corner of my eye. My face was blank as I lifted my hand and repeated, give me back the ring. Howard scoffed. What? Now that you can't get anything out of me, you're trying to pull that breakup stunt again? Yes. Howard's smile froze. There's nothing left for me, so I'm done trying. Time to find the next sugar daddy. Howard's eyes looked like they were about to burst. Don't even fucking think about it. He suddenly went wild, kissing me forcefully. I backed away, struggled, but he held me tighter. I tasted blood between our lips and slapped him across the face. Howard turned his head to the side, his gaze icy. The expression on his face was so complicated. a mix of mockery and pain. He turned and left for a moment. Then he threw a suitcase of cash in front of me. Is 100,000 enough to buy a kiss from you? What about 200,000? 500,000? Seeing me unresponsive, Howard roared and swept the bills across the room. Is $1 million enough? How much does it cost to buy a whore like you? Is it 2 million or 10 million? Say something. Don't you love money more than anything? Aren't you just a fucking… I coughed up a mouthful of blood right onto his face. Blood kept pouring from my mouth. Warm, thick, soaking the collar of my shirt. I collapsed in a wave of searing pain. Howard was stunned. After so many years, I finally dreamed of my mother, who had passed away long ago. Mom, I can fly. As a child, I stood on a high haystack. My mom was cutting straw. Get down from there. You're so high up, you'll fall and start crying again. Mom, I really can fly. I'm a sparrow after all, and sparrows can fly. To prove it to her, I leaped. My mom dropped her sickle and ran to catch me. We both tumbled into the rice paddy. We paused for a second, then burst out laughing. The laughter grew louder and louder, so loud it hurt my eardrums, finally turning into an angry roar. I need a fucking heart. Howard lost control, kicking over a medical cart and screaming at the doctor. A heart to save his life. I'm sorry, there are currently no compatible hearts available. And given the patient's history of a prior heart transplant, I have to inform you that a second transplant surgery would be extremely high risk. The sounds around me were a chaotic blur. But after the doctor said that, Howard fell silent. A long time passed. Then he said hoarsely, I don't care what it takes. I want him alive. That night, Howard used all his power and influence to pressure cardiac specialists from all over the country to come and keep me alive. I was unconscious, my heart stopping several times. But Howard was determined to keep me tethered to life, so I could only hang on. When I opened my eyes and saw Howard by my bed again, I nearly lost my mind. Enough. The oxygen tube, the 4 lines, the EKG leads all over my body. I ripped them all off. I rolled out of bed and grabbed Howard's clothes. At least death is something I can choose, right? Your only stain is finally dying, Howard. Shouldn't you be happy? I've been in pain for so long, Howard. Just let me go. I've lived long enough. Can you just let me go? Faced with my death wish, Howard's expression was blank. But his eyes were shadowed and shot through with countless blood vessels. Is that so? He wiped the hot tears from my face. You've lived long enough, have you? Howard made a call. Soon, my little sister, still a senior in high school, was dragged in front of me. You care about her, don't you? Howard said, you die, and I'll have her join you. I was at the end of my rope. Even though I had been saved this time, I spent my days in a stupor, with very few moments of clarity. Every time I woke up for a little while, I wanted to talk to my sister, whom I hadn't seen in so long, but she never paid any attention to me. A week passed. Howard came every day, looking more exhausted each time. One night, in a daze, I felt someone bury their head in the crook of my neck. His shoulders were trembling slightly. Sparrow, why did you let it get this bad? Howard's words were wrapped in pain. I couldn't tell what he was really feeling, so I gently pushed him away. Howard looked up. His red eyes looked like he hadn't slept in nights. He said, they can't cure you here. I've made arrangements. Tomorrow, I'm taking you to the United States. I whispered, I'm not going. Sparrow, this isn't the time to be stubborn with me. Howard kissed the back of my hand, his voice hoarse. Once you're better, it's okay if you still don't forgive me. I just shook my head, repeating that I wouldn't go. The next day, my sister, who had been ignoring me, suddenly asked, why won't you go to the States? She stared at me, demanding, how long are you going to keep embarrassing yourself? I was stunned. You're a man, but you're willing to be some rich guy's kept boy. How much more shame are you going to bring on yourself? And now you're putting on this pathetic drama. Mom didn't have these kinds of resources when she was sick. Wasn't it enough that you being gay stressed Mom to death? Now you're going to drag me down too? My sister screamed at me, her voice filled with anguish. Leo, for God's sake, have a soul. I have my SATs coming up. Finally, I said softly, okay, don't cry. Your brother will go. Before I left all my assets to my sister. I wanted to talk to her as much as possible before I left. After all, I might never come back. But my sister just took the card without a word and walked away without looking back. She also thought her brother was a stain. An 11-hour flight. I fell into a deep sleep on the plane. I had so many dreams, good and bad. I dreamed of Howard's mother coming to see me, telling me that Howard would rather be electrocuted until he vomited blood than look at my photo and say he didn't like me. Our family will never accept him liking men. So we will continue to correct him. We'll cure him even if he can't be cured. As a mother, it pains me to see him suffer. Perhaps if you break up with him, he'll finally give up hope. I once thought that kind of sick aversion therapy only existed in the last century. I'll break up with him. Just stop torturing him. And I don't want your money. Just don't let him stay there. That's for the best. The woman stood up to leave. You should still take the money. After all, my son is very smart. Besides, doesn't your mother also have a heart condition? A hereditary disease like that can be very expensive. You should be thanking me, really. The treatment abroad was far more painful than I could have imagined. Being kept alive by force was a living hell. I knocked over the nurse's tray of instruments several times, refusing to let anyone near me. Howard held me in his arms, coaxing me softly. Just one more time, please? I'll find a suitable heart for you soon, I promise. I won't let you be in pain anymore. No, no, no. I struggled desperately, the needle pulling out and drawing a stream of blood. From then until now, for 10 years, the look in your eyes whenever you saw me hurt 1,000,000 times more than this. How are you going to make up for that? You say you won't let me be in pain anymore, Howard. But how are you going to make up for all that? I was losing my mind, spiraling into madness, like a mental patient at death's door. And Howard was silent, holding it all in. He just looked at me with those light brown eyes and gently called my name. Barrow. Leo. He said, Leo, I'm sorry. The day after he said he was sorry, Howard disappeared. When he reappeared, his hands were covered in cuts. A series of scabs, like shackles carved by a sharp blade, ran up his arms. He had relapsed. I had always known that Howard's mental state was fragile. So I started taking my medicine seriously and stopped causing trouble. From then on, every so often, whenever I didn't cooperate with my treatment, Howard would create a new wound on his body. Sometimes I would also see him swallow unknown white pills. His expression would be dark, and after hearing apologies on the phone, he would collapse like a beaten dog. What a tragic joke. Howard had searched the entire world and still couldn't find a heart to save me. No matter how much we struggled, my condition only got worse. One day, the pain was so bad I was trembling, and I hid my hands under the covers, refusing the injection. It hurts. It hurts so much. Both of my hands were swollen beyond recognition, covered in needle marks. Howard coaxed me in a low voice. I kept my eyes closed, drifting in and out of consciousness, about to fall asleep. A muffled bang echoed through the hospital room. My eyes shot open. I saw Howard holding a gun in his right hand, his palm a bloody mess where he'd shot himself. Sparrow, is that a little better? A neurotic darkness flickered in the depths of his eyes. I was horrified, speechless. Don't worry. I've already found a match. Howard leaned down and pressed a kiss to the corner of my eye. Sparrow, I won't let you die. With that, he turned and left. Not long after, a disheveled figure burst into the room. I was wrong, Leo. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have framed you like that. Please forgive me. Okay? It was Alexander. I don't want to die. I'm a living person. I can't donate my heart. Please, help me beg Howard. I'm begging you. I don't want to die. He fell to his knees and kowtowed to me over and over. My ears were ringing, overwhelmed by his words, but I was too weak to respond. Howard must have truly gone insane. Alexander lay on the floor crying for a while, then slowly lifted his head. If it weren't for you, I would never have ended up like this. You're the one who should be dead. You. If you're going to die, then just die already. You want to live using my heart? Do you deserve it? Do you? His voice was sharp and piercing. The next moment, Howard, his wound bandaged, threw the door open with a bang. His cold gaze fell on Alexander, as if he were looking at something already dead. I finally realized that I had to make a decision. I didn't want to hurt anyone anymore, whether it was my family or anyone else. Howard, let him go. I called out softly. Howard stood there, unmoving, so I continued, Howard, come here. Hearing that old, affectionate name, he seemed to snap out of it, his head whipping toward me. He didn't even notice Alexander fleeing. I lay in bed, watching him approach. I gazed gently at his face. Howard, do you remember? I once said I wanted to marry you in Iceland. Howard seemed dazed by my expression. He paused for a few seconds before saying, I remember. Howard, I've been cooped up in here for so long. Before I die, I want to see the northern lights with you, to see the legendary White Church. It's the only wish I have left. Will you grant it? Howard asked insistently, who says you're going to die? He knelt down, holding my hand like it was a precious jewel. I know you're bored. When you're a little stronger, I'll take you. I nodded, smiled, and said okay. The time that followed seemed to fast forward. After a week of deep sleep and 2 emergency resuscitations, I miraculously started to get better. It was as if the pain had never existed. My whole body felt light, and I even had the energy to get out of bed for a walk. A light breeze blew through my empty hospital gown. I turned my head. Howard was standing in the doorway, staring at me, stunned. He couldn't see the grim look in the doctor's eyes, and he didn't know about the final rally before death. He just took a few stiff steps. Then he broke into a run, rushing toward me and pulling me into his arms. For a moment, it was like we were teenagers again. When I was 18, Howard was my everything. But at 26, my heart was a barren wasteland. Even setting foot in the sacred place I had dreamed of felt like too much effort. On the first day, Howard carried me on his back as we hiked through the mountains. I watched the aurora borealis in the vast sky, my breath turning to mist. On the second day, I felt the wind on the black sand beach. Even with the thickest coat, I couldn't stop shivering. On the third day, we took a boat tour on the glacier lagoon. I got dizzy and tried to vomit, but only coughed up a handful of blood. On the fourth day, I started to feel weak. I forced down the dull ache in my chest and tugged on Howard's sleeve. No more breaks. Let's go to the church. Howard studied my face carefully. I gave him a smile and said, I'm fine. It's just too cold here. I want to head back soon. Okay. In August, Iceland hadn't yet entered its polar night, but the sky still darkened early. At the end of the distant Rainbow Road, the towering white church stood silently against the sky. I thought I could hear a holy choir singing, a song of fate, guiding me forward. Howard held my hand as we slowly walked to the end. There was no one else around the church. It was as if we were the only 2 people in the world. I left the camera in the car. Go get it. I want to take a picture, I said to Howard. Howard glanced at me, then went back to get the camera. I watched until he was completely out of sight, then turned and walked into the church. I walked for a long time, to finally reach the top of the tower. It wasn't that the stairs were hard to climb. It was that I was vomiting blood with every step. Leaning on a cold stone pillar, I climbed over the railing. The entire city spread out below me, lonely and magnificent. I felt a moment of peace and squinted my eyes. Howard, I don't want to be laid to rest in a cold hospital, and I don't want to die in your arms. Leo loved you his whole life, but this time, I have to be strong enough to forget you. Mom, I can fly. A child's innocent voice echoed in my ears. The wind howled, whipping at my clothes, but I saw a field of golden rice. I shouted with joy, Mom, I can fly, and I leaped. My heart pounded violently. In the instant I fell, a hand grabbed me, holding on for dear life. Howard's face was contorted, his eyes filled with an immense pain. So, you don't care about anything anymore. But what about me? I swayed in the wind. A cold drop landed on my face. A beat too late, I realized. It was a tear. It was you who had to show up, You who had to get close to me. You who had to say you loved me. I could have just lived out my boring life. You're the one who threw everything off course. So what gives you the right to come and go as you please? Sometimes I really hate myself for falling in love with you. You were poor, boring, and plain. Your school uniform was washed until it was faded, and you wore a pair of broken sneakers. There was nothing about you that I should have liked, but I fucking fell for you anyway, even knowing it was wrong. Even knowing I should have rejected you, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. In the years we were apart, I tried everything to forget you. Do you understand that feeling? No one could ever capture my attention like you did. I wanted to kill you, but I couldn't. Is it love or hate? I don't even know myself anymore. But Sparrow, I just couldn't let go. Leo, can't let you go. Tears streamed from his red-rimmed eyes. The veins on his one hand bulged as his strength gave out. He recklessly reached out with his other injured hand to grab me, but I just looked back at him calmly. Then, one by one, I pried his fingers off. Howard, turning you gay back then was my mistake. I've already paid the price, so this time don't catch me. My body began to plummet. The moment my vision exploded in red. A helpless cry echoed through the church, startling a flock of birds into flight. Bonus Chapter 1 Howard's Treatment Journal. March 9th, sunny. First time in a conversion center. It's like a school. But I'm not worried. Loving you isn't a disease. Who's really going to cure me? I just miss you, Leo. March 10th, sunny. It hurts so much. They strapped me to a chair and electrocuted me. Fuck. March 15th, overcast. Using torture to make people submit. I can't believe my parents fell for this crap. I will never give in. Because I love you. March 18th, overcast. Why did you break up with me? Why? May 21st, sunny. I had to pretend to accept the treatment for 2 months just to get out. I finally saw you today, but the way you looked at me was so cold. Do you really not like me anymore, Leo? May 22nd, rain. You transferred. I still can't believe you don't like me anymore. It's not possible. My parents must have threatened you. That has to be it. May 30th, rain. I tried to find you. They caught me. I'm back in this damn conversion center. June 10th, sunny. Don't want to take the meds. I'm not sick. I miss you. I miss you so much. August 28th, sunny. After I got out this time, my mom held me and cried. Probably because I'm so thin, I look like a corpse. I still want to find you. But why have you disappeared so completely? September 15th, rain. Looking for you, always looking for you. I have to know the truth. I don't believe you don't love me. September 17th, rain. They dragged me back again. I want to kill my mother. I hate her. I hate everyone. October 1st, overcast. Woke up. My mom sent me to a mental hospital abroad. She thinks I'm getting sicker. I spent my 19th birthday locked up. November 4th, overcast. Knocked out a nurse and escaped. I dream of seeing you just one more time. But you changed all your contact info. And moved. Why are you so cruel? I can't find you. December 27th, snow. I accept it. Whatever. They can electrocute me to death for all I care. December 28th, snow. A sparrow came to my window today. That sparrow. Why did you fly away? January 30th, snow. Always having nightmares. Then brief memory loss. One time I looked at my mom and asked her who she was. The look in her eyes was so disappointed. Disappointed about what? I want to kill her. February 16th, overcast. Can't find you. 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 You're really cruel, aren't you, Leo? All for 200,000. Now I want to kill you too. April 4th, sunny. My mom has finally given up on treating me. At her age, she's trying for a second child through IVF. Ha ha ha. That bitch. December 9th, sunny. Haven't written in this thing for 2 years. Heard some interesting things today. That's Howard Vance from the Vance family. The rabid dog everyone's afraid of. He has a mental illness. Spent a long time being treated abroad, but was never fully cured. A guy like that could kill someone and not even go to jail. So I really did become a psycho. Leo, you better hope you never run into me again. December 21st, Sunny. Leo, if we ever meet again, I won't let you go, and I won't love you again. I'll make you feel the pain of loving someone you can't have. I'll make you know what it's like to miss someone so much you go insane. Oh, I forgot. You never loved me at all. Ha, ha ha ha. I hate you. Leo, I really, really hate you. Bonus Chapter 2. Lately, the elite circles were buzzing. Rumor had it the Vance family was openly dabbling in superstition, putting out a massive search for spiritualists who could summon spirits, with a reward of 500,000. I heard it's for a guy. What? He was gay? You mean that psycho Howard Vance who disowned his own family? He was already crazy. I heard his mind has been gone for a while. The Vance estate. Chicken blood was splattered across the floor. In a basin, some of the deceased's old clothes were burning. A self-proclaimed master was chanting and dancing, occasionally throwing a handful of sticky rice, some of which landed on Howard's face. Howard was on the phone. Howard, I know this was an arranged marriage, but you still have to play the part with me, right? I know you're upset about your little lover dying, but Howard hung up before she could finish. Suddenly, all the lights went out. The master's young apprentice shouted, "It worked! It worked! Mr. Quinn has possessed my master's body." Howard's heart clenched, and he looked over. The so-called master stood ramrod straight in the middle of the hall, his voice mournful. "Howard, I miss you so much." Howard, who had started to walk forward, froze, his face contorted with rage. He walked over and kicked the man to the ground. He beat and kicked him until he was half dead. "Miss me? You say he misses me? When he was alive, he would rather kill himself than be with me. And you have the fucking nerve to say he misses me?" The famous master ended up in the ICU. For the next few days, no one dared to take Howard's job. Howard raised the reward to $1 million. This time, an old man finally showed up, lame in one leg and leaning on a shabby crutch. When the old man entered the house, Howard was leaning against a glass coffin, a half-smoked cigarette in his hand. The old man asked, "What's the request?" Howard said, "I want him to be trapped in this house forever, never to be reincarnated." The old man quickly shook his head. "Can't do it. That kind of thing brings down heavenly wrath. You see what happened to me? Besides, hasn't he been here all along?" The old man glanced toward the window. "You haven't given him a proper burial, so he can only be a wandering ghost. He can't be reincarnated anyway." Hearing this, a sinister smile touched Howard's lips. "Reincarnated? In his dreams. You were my person in life, and you'll be my ghost in death. Don't think you can escape me just because you're dead." The old man chuckled. Howard looked over at him. "Why do you bother? If he really doesn't want to stay, he can just dissipate into the ether. What will you do then? You'll burn a pile of joss paper with no soul to receive it." Howard was silent for a moment. He said, "I want to see him." The old man nodded. Without any preparation, he took out 3 sticks of incense, bowed, and lit them. Through the curling smoke, all Howard saw was a single ray of sunlight shining in through the window. Nothing else. He was about to lose his temper, when a white figure suddenly appeared in the sunlight. It was blurry, and if you looked too long, you'd think it was a trick of the light. But no matter how blurry, Howard recognized him. "Barrow." Howard seemed to have forgotten how to speak. He instinctively took a few steps forward, then stopped abruptly, not daring to go any further. "Barrow, He had so much he wanted to say, but he had barely started when the shadow began to fade, dissolving into the air with the scent of the incense. "Well, he's gone." The old man's voice broke the silence. "He really didn't want to say a single word to you, huh?" Howard's expression was dazed. He turned and asked, "What?" But the old man was already on his way out, hobbling away. As he left, he muttered, "They always ask, when will the cycle of revenge ever end? Well, now it has." Howard stood alone in the enormous house. It was a long time before he burst out laughing. He walked to the glass coffin and looked at the person inside as if he were looking at the enemy he hated most in the world. Tears fell onto the glass, one after another. He murmured to himself, "You hate me that much? That night, amid countless cigarette butts and pools of liquor, the mansion went up in a monstrous blaze. Howard rushed out, carrying Leo's body, but his path was blocked by a wall of fire. The wooden staircase collapsed with a roar. Howard, gasping for breath, looked down at the person in his arms. Then, unhurriedly, he turned around and walked back the way he came, saying, "You've dissipated. Leo, don't even think about tricking me. You're not getting away from me even in death." Flames licked at the hem of Howard's clothes. He didn't move, just lowered his gaze and stared intently at Leo. "You have to be with me even if you're dead. I won't let you go. I won't let you go." He kept muttering those words as the fire consumed him, letting all the love and all the hate finally turn to ash.